Hey, how's it going guys, Kris here with another one of those Battlefield 5 gun guides, and today we're going to be checking out the EMP submachine gun that you'll be able to unlock at Medic rank 13. So right the way back in the early 1920s, German gun designer Vollmer started developing several SMGs that took inspiration from the earlier MP18, the gun used by German shock troops towards the end of the First World War. Over the years, his designs were developed and improved, to the point where in the late 20s, he had an SMG that was available in a variety of lengths, featuring its own wooden foregrip, and this will be known as the VMP, being produced in smaller quantities. Vollmer wasn't able to get a substantial contract for his SMGs, and so a couple of years later, he sold the rights for the design to German weapon manufacturer Irma, which led to its name VMP being changed to EMP, basically standing for the Irma machine and pistol, with the final models of the design to be introduced in the 1930s. Much like other German SMGs around at the time, the EMP was chambered for 9mm parabellum and was compatible with 32 round box magazines, which could be loaded from the side of the receiver, just like the early MP18 design it drew inspiration from. The Germans went on to use the EMP throughout the Second World War in limited numbers, as you'd probably expect, though the gun was also exported to several other countries too, including France, Mexico, Yugoslavia, China, and even Spain, who eventually produced their own copies of the gun under license, after the EMP proved its worth in the earlier Spanish Civil War, playing a pretty large role on both sides of the conflict. In Battlefield 5, the EMP dishes out 25 damage up close per bullet, which is going to start to drop down from the range of 10 meters, declining quite quickly from this point, but getting more gradual over medium range, eventually leveling out at 12 damage from 100 meters. So this is a pretty similar damage model to most of the other SMGs, allowing the EMP to take players down in just 4 shots up close, though the bullets needed to kill will quite quickly start to increase from 10 meters, basically 1 extra shot for every 10 meters, up until the 30 meter mark. Though this number is going to keep increasing until 75 meters, where it could take up to 9 bullets to put an enemy down with full health, making the weapon fairly weak over range, as you'd naturally expect from a submachine gun like this. Fire rate isn't particularly amazing, being sort of set in the middle of the faster and slower shooting guns, firing at a fairly steady rate of 568 RPM. Nothing too competitive, it's still enough to perform adequately in close quarters, providing you're careful, and providing you're quicker to the trigger than the other guy. The EMP definitely isn't a powerhouse with this set of stats, but it can still be deadly in the right situation, though with it potentially taking so many shots to kill over distance, while having that mediocre fire rate, kill times beyond those medium ranges can often feel really bloody slow, where you can often be punished if you get too ballsy. With a vertical kick reading of 0.52, along with a 0.02 increase value, this basically gives the EMP a somewhat decent level of stability, being just a bit higher than the MP34, the Sten, and the MP40. And because you can lower this upwards kick a little bit with a recoil buffer, this will make it even easier to control, allowing you to stay on target for longer durations without needing to burst your shots. Thankfully for the gun, it's also got both its leftwards and rightwards values set at 0.155, meaning it's not going to start drifting off to any specific side in full auto fire, which can generally make the EMP a bit easier to aim with than quite a lot of the other submachine guns. And because these said values aren't particularly high either, this should give it a fairly good level of precision overall, helping to extend its effectiveness beyond those short sight lines, plus allowing it to perform a tad better than a few of the other SMGs over those early mid-ranges, shortening kill time slightly due to more bullets actually landing on target rather than missing. Muzzle velocity isn't exactly very impressive, perhaps limiting its use against players beyond medium range, but there's no denying that the EMP's got one of the better recoil patterns in the medic class, and this should at least make the gun quite easy to aim with, letting you take full advantage of its full auto fire without having to worry too much about any awkward kick getting in the way. With the EMP having a 32 round ammo capacity per magazine, this gives it enough shots to take on a few enemies before you'll need to reload, especially within those earlier ranges where less bullets will be required to kill. The gun's accuracy and steadier fire rate will also help to benefit its reliability too, as automatic fire is going to be a little bit easier to regulate than a lot of the faster shooting weapons, and so you might find that the EMP is more capable of dealing with multiple opponents one after the other with just one mag. Of course, 32 rounds isn't going to last forever, and you're more likely to run out of bullets mid-gunfight if you try and take on players outside of the EMP's comfort zone. Running out of shots will mean that you'll have to perform a longer than average reload of 3.66 seconds, which just might make you slightly more vulnerable up close when you're surrounded and get caught off guard. Though with tactical reloads taking a much more tolerable 2.26 seconds, this can get you back into the fight over a second and a half quicker. Not the nippiest speed, but still one that's more manageable during heated moments. And although there's no way to decrease these times any further or extend the weapon's mag size, these base stats shouldn't really give you too many problems, with the EMP feeling quite dependable most of the time. Taking a look at the specializations now, at the top, we've got slings and swivels on the left to boost deploy speeds, and quick aim on the right to aim down sights faster. You can't really go wrong with either of these two, though I tend to prefer running with quick aim, just to complement ADS use, which is one area that the gun excels at, being quite precise. In the middle, you'll be able to find enhanced grips and polished action on the left, both benefit in hip-fire spread and accuracy. Though on the right, you've got the custom and lightened stocks, lowering ADS spread while moving, along with making that movement speed a bit quicker too. Here I tend to go down the right, which is going to complement the EMP's aimed accuracy even more and play to its strengths. Tightening hipfire with the other side definitely isn't a bad thing to do, and it can also be a good way to run the weapon, though I usually prefer to do that with some of the faster firing SMGs instead, which are generally better optimised for rushing forwards and playing aggressively. Last but not least, we've got recoil buffer on the left, lowering vertical kick, and on the right, the barrel bedding spec, decreasing spread while standing still. And with the EMP being a submachine gun designed to be used within earlier ranges, I tend to find recoil buffer to be a bit more useful, helping in all gunfights, while going a bit better with the specializations we picked earlier. So anyway, in conclusion, the EMP is a pretty well-rounded SMG that's not quite as aggressive as a lot of the others on offer, perhaps limiting its effectiveness in some close quarter combat situations, but it's often able to deal with enemies further away slightly better instead, due to it having a good level of precision, with a recoil pattern that's quite easy to control and get to grips with. It doesn't fully commit to a specific style of play, being useful for both offensive and defensive players, and this generally allows it to excel within those early mid-ranges, while still being deadly up close, providing you get the drop on your opponents first. Although easier to aim with than a lot of the other SMGs, the EMP is still going to struggle against anyone too far away, with its kill times being hampered by the average fire rate and low damage stats over longer ranges. It can often be best to play in a sort of passive-aggressive way, closer to the action, without being too gung-ho, as it can be a fairly reliable weapon most of the time with its decent mag size and tactical reload speed, though still prone to getting you caught out if you get too carried away, having those lazy empty reloads and close range kill times that aren't quite as snappy as a lot of the competition. But generally speaking, if you want a good middle ground SMG that's got decent precision without really having any massive drawbacks to speak of, then the EMP can be a pretty nice choice, trading some of its lethality for a better balance of stats in other areas. Anyway, that's it for this one guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed the guide and found it useful, and if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe and check out the Battlefield 5 Weapons Guide playlist on my channel. Take it easy folks, and I'll be seeing you in that next one.